Hey guys, welcome back. These are going to be long episodes and I'm going to try dividing it into logical parts as much as possible. So, whatever we are going to do right now in these episodes are that we need to have a presentation view where, let's say, if you are searching for your city and then searching and then selecting your city to show up all the airports around you, and if once you click on that, it's going to show you the map view where you can see the distance as well as um, the line which is drawn on it, like the path from your location to the airport. That is also something we are going to do in this episode series. Plus there are some things pending, like when your application is launching, you need to show some animation that the view is loading, so that needs to be handled using the view models. That's also coming up. Plus there is one more thing pending, which is like showing an empty view whenever your app is loaded and then you don't have anything on your table view to show. At that point, we're going to show an empty view, a pretty good looking one, where you can actually start searching and then select your cities from there. So let's start with the first episode, at least the next episode, where we can pick one location, which is your city, and then show that in a map view. Not the city, just your airport, and then show that in your map view. So first thing first, we will show how to actually present a view using this approach that we are following, which is the MVVM coordinator, where we introduced the router in the last episode. If you have missed that, you're missing something big, because that is very critical for this tutorial series. If that is actually handling some memory management things, and if you don't follow that, then your whole of your application is a mess. So please follow that first before coming back to these episodes. So let's get started. So whatever we are going to add is a view for this. Let's say I search for a city, let's say Mumbai, and if I see my airport, on tapping it, I should be able to see the map location, or at least the direction from my location to the map to the airport in a presented view. So that's what we are going to create right now, a presentation view. So for that, let's create something called airport details view model, view controller. So go and change UI view controller, airport details view controller. I don't need the XIB because I'll be creating that in my main storyboard. So let's grab and add one view controller. Add it. Then add that reference of it. Airport details view controller, and maybe also include that storyboard identifier. That's done. So we have the view controller ready. Again, it's going to have a view pretty much. Let's include that later. Let's just start wiring these things up. Like, we have this view controller ready now. We need to launch that. So maybe I'll call it okay, let's do this first. So we have the airports view model right now. So it needs to have an input coming from, let's say, we have airports view controller. We don't have anything which can send a tap signal. Let's say if I'm selecting one of the cells, we need to send that to the view model so that it can action on it and then start showing that the presented view controller. So for that, let's create an input, because this is going to be an input from your view controller to the view model. So we need an input for that. So let's go to that view model. It's called airports view model, and then create an action there. I'm gonna call it select airport. It's a driver and it's gonna be of a specific type called airport view model. Airport view presentable, I guess. Presentable is what we need. And then we cannot have a single element this is a tuple, so we cannot have a single element, so you also need to include an empty one. So that's what I did right here, and it's going to ask me now to include that single that tuple item over here. This is where we create the view model. So we already have the table view. So all that we need to do is airport selected is a table views model selected. This is very specific to RxSwift. So table views Rx model selected property is what model selected control event is what we need to get hold of, and then it is asking for a specific view model type. So we can always say city airport, not city airport, airport view. We cannot call a presentable self, I guess. Let's try that. I don't think you can have a protocol select airport. At least try that, and if it does not work, you'll have to actually make it that specific view model. So I guess it's not allowing convertible to, okay, it's not yet a driver, so we need to also make it as a driver. It's a driver now. So even then I think it requires a view model, so let's change that to view model and see. Go back to this airport view model, airport view model self is that as driver on error. Just try with an empty item. Is that fine? What is wrong? Model selected, driver, and an empty item. So is it airport selected? I think it is select airport. That's the reason. So let's try this again. Airport. Did I make it airport view model? That's again wrong. It should be airport view. Let's try airport view presentably. It does not work. You'll have to set it to its. Okay, I had set it to airport's view model. View presentable works fine. So we can actually pass a protocol itself. So that's that's something done. So this is nothing but as soon as you tap a cell, model selected control event can actually grab that specific cell selected and its model or view model which is already bound with it. So that's what I have asked it to select. It's actually mapping to that, and I'm just making it as a driver. So we need a driver object which will always run in the main thread. This is done. So we can start getting the signal in our view model like this. So we already have, we need a function. Let's call it as function where you can process these things. I'm gonna just call it as process. It does not do anything. It's just accepting this, all the instance things here. I just need to say self dot process. So it's gonna set those bindings right here. So self dot, it's coming through the input select airport. I can always map and get that specific view model element. I can just call it as view model. It does not return anything. So you can just see this, and whatever is going to happen is as soon as I tap on this, it's going to show that view, the view with the presentation. So that's what we need to do. That's what we created right now. So airport details view control is what we will launch from here. So for that we already have do we have a dispose bag? We don't have yet. So let's create a dispose bag, private bag equal to dispose bag, private let bag. My focus is so poor today. Okay, let's see. Bag dispose, this needs to be a drive, and then disposed by bag. So whatever is going to happen is we need to send this to the coordinator and then ask that coordinator to launch or present that new screen. So that's what's going to happen here. So similar to what we did, let's say in the search city view model, we defined something called as a routing here. This is not the same routing which we did in the last episode. This is something, this maybe the naming convention should be maybe we'll keep it as routing itself. It's router, but this is very specific to the view models. It's not the other routers which are actually handling the navigation from one screen to the other. These are more like handling the dismiss, let's say back and all those operations. So I'm just calling it as a router itself. So I'm just gonna grab the same approach, even type alias routing, what needs to happen, what needs to be sent back on route, all those things I'm gonna define even here. So I'm gonna, okay, we have something called as a routing action there. So on these routing actions are publish relays, so that can accept values, and then if something is subscribed, like it can send that value there. So send that value, that's, let's see what happens here. So I'm going to call it as again the routing action and the routing, which is nothing but the subscribers to it, driver here. So I'm going to call do that same thing, private let, okay, first thing first, type alias routing action. It's going to be very specific to this. I can keep it private to this routing action. It's going to have what is this action like on airport select, or I could call it even dismiss, because this is where it's not dismissing, it's actually showing something, airport select. So select, this is a routing, and I'm gonna keep it as a publish relay because it needs to accept something, and that specific something is here airport view presentable. That's what I'm gonna send back. Is that a good idea that I sent? I think I don't need the whole presentable here because I can just send a model. Okay, I think that model is enough. Airport model is enough. To be sent, and are we having any model here? We do have sections which is having, okay, we have dependencies where model can be asked for and sent, so that is also there, so we can just send models there. So routing action private let routing action equals airport select, and then instantiate that publish relay and the empty thing. So that's what your publish relay cannot be any. Okay, airport model is what we are going to send. And now let's also define the routing for this. Type alias routing, maybe I need to find a better terminology for these specific scenarios, because routing is most like navigation, this is more like relays. Okay, let's keep it that right now, and it should have airport select as an observable. This is actually a relay, so I can just call it as a relay. Airport driver this is more like a driver, so I can just make it as a driver and ask of this specific type, and then have let router of this specific type routing, airport select, driver can be created using your routing action. So I'm going to call that This should be then lazy. Let lazy var router routing action dot airport select relay, make it as a driver, so if it is empty, I don't need to send anything. Write error dot empty, that's it. And the other final one, empty one. This should be fine. That succeeded. So I can now use this router to do some action. So what happens is, you have the view model received here. I can so then use the dependencies, models dependencies. I don't have a dependency, I need to pass that. We are passing the dependencies here. I need to also pass that to the process, similar to this. Maybe I can just ask for models process, or maybe the dependency itself, dependencies dot models. I receive that models here so that I can get the first element from the models, which is corresponding to this view model. That's what I'm gonna do. So this is asking for the dependencies now. Dependency should be of this specific type so that it does not have a conflict. So I pass the dependencies here, and then use that to get the first model here. So let model equals models dot filter. So what can we filter on? You already know that code is unique, so I can use that view models, the $0. I'm gonna make it $0 dot, okay, better I keep it as view model itself, view model dot code. So these should both be equal. Get the first thing. So if let model is existing, then I use that to dismiss, I mean at least send it to the next view. So that how to the view coordinator. That's what I'm gonna do here. So for that I'm gonna call the routing, so I can pass the routing here, routing router. So router dot, why is the router, is that router self-dot router? Okay, this function. Can call weak self airport select. Okay, this should be router action, router, did I call it routing action? Okay, routing action dot airport relay dot accept. It should accept that model. Okay, so this is not a class, so we will not have any memory issues. It's better that I can make this class. That's one change I'm gonna do here. Airport view model is a struct. Maybe I rely more on classes. I'm gonna make it as class. It's not going to give any more error or something. Just that I prefer classes here, so that I can include this routing action here. That's it. So now as soon as the model is identified, if it is existing, then maybe I can split it across as multiple. This is giving me a model, so I can just say this first is one step, and then I can again map it, get that model, and then I can check. I can do a filter $0 is not equal to nil. So that means it's this specific value is not, if the first that you're passing is not nil, then accept it. Then if not nil only, then it will start sending signals, so that I can easily map it and then force cast it. $0. This forecasting, I did force cast it so that I can receive it the next map. I get the airport model here. Then I don't need all these conditional checks. I just split across multiple lines, just that I need the routing action here. Routing action in. So I receive the routing action, I do that routing. I just split it across this $0 number of lines, so that I avoided all that if else, all that happening here. So routing action is not needed here. Okay, so first thing, models.filter applied first. You're checking that signal is not nil. If it is not nil, send that signal so that I can down force cast it, because I know this is not empty, so it's just gonna come back here, and then I use that here. So 3-4 steps, making it readable more. So that's done. So now this should send a signal back to my coordinator, which is let's say it comes here or not. Let's see that. Mumbai, tap, boom, it reaches here, and it's having that model, so it's sending it. So now it's the job of my coordinator to handle that. So let's go to the airport's coordinator. This is where things are happening. This is my airport view model, so I'm just returning that right here. So maybe I need to have a reference of it here. Let view model is equal to this, and then return it here. Return view model, and then use that view model dot router dot airport select. What should happen on airport select dot map it. So I get that value here. So I'm going to subscribe for that airport model in. So I'm going to receive it here, and then I'm going to subscribe for it. So let's create a bag here. Let private let bag dispose bag. So I need RxSwift dispose bag. Bag is received, so I can just maybe pass it in this closure, maybe here. Drive dispose by bag. Receive the bag. Yep. 3-4 steps. You receive the bag here, then it will dispose it off. So this is where you receive the model, and it's now the responsibility of this coordinator to send this value to the next layer, which is the airport details side. So before that, let's just see whether that pushing and popping things are working before sending that. So for that, let's do the changes which are needed in the router which we created in the last episode. Let's do that. So this is my routing which I created in the last one, where there is no option to actually do any push presentation of things. So let's do that. Let me just refer. So I need to things that I need to add is function to pop to root. They did not have anything to pop to root. I'm gonna even add that. Underscore is animated bool. That's for popping to the root. Plus we need to have something for presenting. So underscore drawable. Drawable is nothing but something which is implemented by UI view controller. So every view controller is now a drawable for me. So you need to watch the last episode if you're not understanding what's going on right now. On dismiss. So this is more like a rework of whatever we had done earlier in the earlier tutorials, because we had a problem with back button not working properly, because on back it was not disposing of the child coordinators. That's what we are trying to solve in this one. So I need to implement all these things which we right now added, like the pop to root and present. Let's do that. I'm gonna bring that to the bottom because push and pop is already here. Pop to root, nothing, just need to pop to root we already have with the new navigation controller. So everything whatever was handled by the navigation controller is now delegated to the router. So that's what is happening here. Pop to root, navigation controller just does that pop to root, and then even this present, it's gonna happen using the navigation controllers dot pop present navigation controller dot it's not so simple because we need to get that view controller similar to what we did for, let's say, the push. Same things we need to do, like these steps are the same. You can just grab that. It's like view controller is implementing a drawable. If that is the case, then view controller will exist. And then if you are passing a closure, this is a more a dismiss closure. So like what should happen on dismiss, that will be handled by this closure. So we send that closure. If it is there, again you are using the same, like update your closures, something we are defined here as a dictionary. Update your closures here in this dictionary with the description of your view controller. That's happening here. And after that, all that you need is use your navigation controller to just do a present view controller, which is your view controller animated, send that as whatever we passed as animated, and then use closure. Does not need to do anything, you can just say nil here. So that's it. And one new thing which has happened right now with the new iOS 13 is that you need separate UI adaptive presentation controller delegate to be implemented so that you can handle the dismiss handles. For that, let's implement the view controllers presentation controller presentation view controllers. It's called presentation controllers delegate to self, which is actually this router needs to handle that. So I'm just setting that here, so which will ask you to implement this UI adaptive presentation UI controller delegate. So I'm going to extend this one, presenter router UI adaptive presentation controller delegate, and we need a specific presentation controller did dismiss function to be implemented. Presentation controller did dismiss function. So this is what is going to handle your dismiss, everything happening. So once a view controller is dismissed, you can just call the function execute closures and then just pass the presentation controllers presented view controller. So this is going to handle your closure. If you don't know what is happening, check back the earlier episode where we were handling the back. Whenever back was happening, it used to come here and then it was checking whether it is existing in the navigation stack or not. If it is not existing, that means back has happened and the view controller needs to be doing something, because back has happened. It needs to its corresponding coordinator needs to dispose itself. So it gets a call to its parent saying that you need to dispose now. So that's what this execute closure does. So even similar thing, this execute closure is just telling its parent coordinator that you need to now remove the child, whoever is the presented view controller's corresponding coordinator is. That's what is happening. So that's the reason we have an implementation for the presentation controller delegate. So this is how we are going to handle the dismiss case. So we don't have any. We have the present case. We don't do anything for the dismiss. We're just going to call that because we have a handle over dismiss. So this is the implementation for push, not the push we already handled in the last one, present and dismiss. So on dismiss, this will get called. It is like the execution is going to come over here into the adaptive presentation controller delegate. It's going to call did dismiss and then it's going to execute here. So this is my implementation for the router. That's done. So now whatever we need to do is, first thing, we need to present our view controller. We can use this function for that. So let's go back to our airports coordinator, and then we already have we need to have a function where we can say show airport. I guess that's how I've done it. Airports coordinator, we need to have show airport details. So I'm going to create a function extension airports coordinator. Let this be private, and then I'm going to have a function show airport details. It's going to ask for the model, airport model. Returns nothing. And here, this is where I'm gonna create that instance of I'm just gonna create. We don't have a coordinator, so we need a coordinator here to show that airport details. So let's create that. So we don't have that. New function, new class called airport details coordinator. Airport coordinator. It's going to implement base coordinator, so that will give it option to override the start function. I think it should ask for override now. Yeah, overriding start function. And also this needs to have init to ask for a router so that it can start using that router. So I'm going to pass that router routing. This is not the router which we created now, but this is more like this routing, which is part of the router which handles all your navigation. So this is what I'm going to pass. It needs to have an instance of this router, private, let router is routing, and then it can ask to set itself here, router. So now on start, what should happen? So we have the start function. Start is nothing but it just creates an instance of your view controller and then shows it. So I can just say let view is equal to airport details view controller dot instantiate. For instantiate to work, we need an implementation. For that, let's go back and check what we need to implement. In search view controller, we had the storyboardable, so we need to implement storyboardable even here, so that it can just call instantiate and it will create an instance for you of this view controller instantiate. That's it. And then I can use the router dot present function which we defined right now. and it can pass view, because every view is implementing this drawable. Every UI view controller is. So I can just pass even this view as drawable type. Animated, of course I need it as animated, so I'm just gonna say true. On dismiss, I need a closure. So you can see every base coordinator has, base coordinator has something called as is completed, so which is what we're gonna use. And this being inherited, I can also use this is completed of this details coordinator. So this is where it's going to get that callback. Whenever something gets dismissed, is completed is getting, will be set. That closure will have some value received, and then it will give a callback to your coordinator. So this is what right now you're going to do. It is going to start your view controller. So we have the start function, airports coordinator. All that I need to do is create this instance in airports coordinator. So I'm going to call let coordinator is equal to airport details, airport detail coordinator, and it's just asking for a router. So self dot router, it's already having that same router which you are passing. You can just pass that one because that is having that navigation controller here. So now I can use that coordinator, just call start function. So this start will actually make a call to the creation of it, and then it will start the coordinators. So start is added here. Even before start, we need to do some more things. Let's say I need to add this coordinator to this is a new coordinator we are creating, and this is your parent coordinator, which is airports coordinator. So this is your child now, because this is where the new view, which is airport details, it's getting launched. So you need to add this details coordinator here. Yeah, maybe call it as details coordinator. Details coordinator I'm adding as a child. So that's done. Now as soon as it gets dismissed, I need to also remove it from the parent. So for that I need to use the details is completed. Once it is completed, I can remove it. So this completion is going to get called from somewhere, gonna get set from somewhere as soon as that view is getting deallocated. Weeks have, this is detail start week in. So as soon as this happened, self dot, I'm going to call remove and pass this week reference of details coordinator. So this is going to remove the this view from the, okay, I need to check from the parent. Let coordinator is equal to details coordinator, else nothing, do nothing. So this is going to remove it. So those steps are done. So now you will see that I'll show you the memory leak and how to handle is completed should also be called. I think that will get called because we already have this in routing. So as soon as you call, let's say dismiss this view, you're going to see that it's going to hit here, this one, and then that's going to release that, because it's going to internally set that is completed. So you're going to see that even that there will not be any memory leak. So details is set. We are not having any view controllers or anything right now, but I can just maybe keep some label or something here to show that details is getting launched. Airport details. Okay, so maybe center. So it should show that the detail screen is getting loaded. So we have the end-to-end code, I guess. So let's just verify it once. So it's going to come to airports. We saw that it's going to come here, and then it's going to accept this model, and once that is accepted, it goes to the coordinator. Okay, we have something missing here. Airport select model received, and then we need to call this function self dot show airport details and pass this model. Show airport details in turn creates a coordinator and then calls the start function. So within the start function, you see that you creating an instance of your view controller and then presenting. You're calling that present within this coordinator. So coordinator is handling all that things. And on remove, it's going to come here and then remove that view controller. So memory management is also going to get handled. So let's see what is going to happen now. It's loaded. Going to again call Mumbai. View is loaded. Tap on it. Airport details. So on dismiss, what just happened? My device is so slow. Dismiss called and this execute closure is executed now. So which in turn is going to come here in my this place. See, and then it's going to remove your view controller, the coordinator, which is the child coordinator. So you're not going to see any memory issues. If you go to the memory profiler, you should not see any details coordinators instance, otherwise your memory leaking. So you have the airports coordinator, which is fine, but you don't have any details here. So your memory is pretty much handled here. So that's this episode. It's more like whatever I try to do is how to handle your present and dismiss scenarios. That's handled now. Dismiss is going to come from different scenarios. At least right now it is like draw it down and it's going to dismiss. That's how we handled it. So this episode we primarily focused on how to present a view controller using the coordinator and then dismiss and handle it. So that was the intention. Now in the next episode we're going to see how to actually use that model values and even the current location to actually draw that details in a map view with the direction being shown by the path, which that will also be drawn in the map along with some details. That's going to be the next episodes. So you come back for the next one. Until then, it's bye.